Okay, welcome to our third session. My name is Carl, and I'm going to be going through a game with one of the great players in the history of chess. In the history of chess, we've had a load of really great players, and they're the best players to learn from. If you were to look at the games of the world champions, the best ever players, they come up with the best strategies. So, they're the ones we want to use. Strategies like the golden rules, strategies like attacking the weak spot, and other things as well. We're going to learn more and more of these strategies, and maybe learn about some of these players as we go along. So, the strategies that you've learned over the last couple of weeks, Paul Morphy's great ideas, okay? These ones, we call the golden rules of chess strategy. These are attack the center of the board. That's this area here. Okay. We also want to develop our pieces, the ones at the back. And we also want to make sure that our king gets very safe indeed. Those are most definitely our best strategies that we need to do all the time. And I just want to say, before we go any further, that if I go through more advanced strategies as we're going, please don't forget these. I notice it a lot. A lot of people, they forget these golden rules. They think to themselves, okay, I now know about the golden rules, I learn about something new, I can do that instead. But no, that's not the way it goes. What we need to do is do things as well as the golden rules. So, learn the golden rules and use them each time. Attack the center, develop your pieces, get your king safe. And then, use your other strategies as well. So the man I'm going to talk about today, you learned a little bit about Paul Morphy last week, is this man here, Alexander Alekhine. Alexander Alekhine, he was a world champion. In fact, he won against the guy who everyone thought was unbeatable. This is Mr. Alekhine sitting on this side of the board here. And this is a man who everyone thought was unbeatable. This guy, Capablanca, the world champion before Alekhine, he went for the longest time without losing a game of chess. For 10 years, this guy didn't lose a tournament game. His nickname, people called him the chess computer. It's like nobody could beat him. It was like playing against a computer. Okay? He was just too good. In fact, before these guys played in the World Championship match, every time they played a game against each other, this guy won, or the game ended in a draw. Alekhine had never beaten Capablanca before the match. But in the match, it was Alekhine that won. He won because he studied Capablanca's games. He studied his strategies. He studied his style. And he worked on his own weaknesses. And he thought, I don't do this very well. I'm going to get better at that in practice. Oh, Capablanca's really good at that part of the game. Maybe I better improve my that part of the game for me as well. And he worked really hard until he beat him. Which is an amazing thing to do. Never beaten him before. Once they played the match, Capablanca, he just thought, oh, this is going to be easy. It's this guy I keep beating again and again and again. No way. When the match came, Alekhine was the winner. They played in completely different styles. Capablanca, safety first. If you want to follow someone who was always playing safe moves, then you would follow Capablanca. If you were playing someone or following someone who played risky chess, who loved to attack, okay, in that case, then you would, okay, Kylie, so New South Wales, maybe they have no sound at the present moment. I'm trying to work on that at the present moment, okay. And in the meantime, I'm going to keep talking while trying to work on that. So that's a little technical issue that's happening at the present moment. So this guy, he was just the most amazing attacking and aggressive player. Okay, so he was the sort of person that you would try to follow if you wanted to see the most amazing, tricky, and the most complicated sort of chess that you could possibly imagine. So that's what you really want to follow. This guy for safety, and this guy for tricks. And what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at the game, probably one of my favourite games by Alexander Alekhine. In fact, such a favourite game of mine that I actually tried to copy the way he played. So when I first saw this game, I don't know, maybe 20 years ago, I was so influenced by it that I thought, oh, I've got to play just like Alekhine. He's amazing. But of course, I couldn't, because he was a genius, he was an amazing chess player, and I don't play the same way as he does anyway. What we're going to learn in this game is not just the golden rules, okay? We're going to learn also about some tricks that you can use in your games and that people will try to use against you, okay? So what I would like is for you to follow the arrows that I start putting on the board, because I'm going to talk about 4 tricks in particular. I'm going to write these in the chat box. So you have 4 tricks. They're called pins, forks, discovered attacks, and skewers. And we're going to look at these tricks, which all happen in this game. Mr. Alekhine, he was the most amazing player when it came down to tricks. He had every trick you could possibly imagine. So, let's have a look at this game. It starts in typical golden rules fashion, with both pawns heading towards the center of the board. White now brought out his knight, okay? And black brought his pawn to there. Now, for those of you that can remember the Paul Morphy game, this was the move that Paul Morphy's opponents played against him. It was considered a bad move. But Alekhine didn't mind. He could play any move and use his tricks to his advantage. Okay? So, he had studied the positions of this, and he'd studied Paul Morphy's games, and he worked out that there were some tricks that he could use in this game. He just didn't have to play exactly the same way as those guys did against Paul Morphy. He could play better than that. So he's going to try and improve on things. White didn't play the move that Paul Morphy played. So maybe Alexander Alekhine, the world champion, had worked out that his opponent wasn't going to play the best move, Paul Morphy's excellent move of pushing his pawn up into the center. But this move is quite a good move nevertheless. The bishop aims at this square, this danger square, this weak spot. White is thinking about whether he can actually break through the weak spot. Okay? So we'll see if he manages that, or we'll see if Mr. Alekhine can stop it. Out comes the knight, a simple developing move. And black has got himself into an okay position, but white's thinking, I can do some good stuff here. I can do some stuff against Alekhine, and I can try and trick him. It's going to bite him in the end, because in the end, it's Alekhine who's going to be doing the tricks towards white. Okay? In this position, if we were talking about the golden rules, the 3 golden rules, white's attack the center, white's develop some pieces. What should white do next? White's next move, if we were talking about the golden rules, what should they do next? Absolutely, castling. Of course, this is a move that you would expect white to do. Castling. Okay, that would be the move that I would be expecting my opponent to do. However, that's not the move that came through. Okay, the move that came through was this one. He played pawn to here. And it's a very, very strange move that he played. Castling is what we'd expect. Pawn to here is what he played. The reason for that is that the pawn is defending the center. So he wants to push his pawn up and build a wall of pawns in the center. Well, that's a good thing. He's also thinking about bringing his queen out in this direction. And if it comes in this direction, it could be aiming there, or if it goes to there, it could be aiming there. So there's two reasons why this little pawn push was made: to attack the center and to develop the queen. Alekhine, not worried whatsoever. He just carries on with his development and does this move, which is the first move that I want to talk about today. This move is called a pin. Look at the way the bishop is aiming at the knight. If the knight moves, we're going to get the queen. So the bishop is stopping the knight from moving. And when you stop one of your pieces from moving, because if it moves, something terrible is going to happen, like lose your queen, we call it a pin. Okay? It's as if the knight is pinned to the spot. It's got a pin in it. Okay? Sticking it to this spot here. Bishops are very, very good at doing pins. Bishops are absolute experts at doing them, and they do them really early on. We're going to see almost all the bishops in this game do pins. One way to get out of a pin is to move the piece that's at the back, which is the queen, which is exactly what white does. Out comes the queen, and we now have a different trick, trick number 2. This one is called a fork. The queen is aiming straight at the board here, and it's also aiming, with the help of the bishop, double power, aiming in this direction. So, one piece, 2 threats. That's a fork. Okay? These tricks happen the most in chess. Pins happen loads and loads and loads. There's virtually no games where there isn't a pin. Forks, they're the best way to win points. You aim at one thing, and if your opponent defends that, you just take the other thing you're aiming at. Sometimes we can aim at more than one piece. Every piece can do a fork. Okay? Every piece. Even kings, even pawns can do forks where they aim at 2 different things. The absolute expert at doing forks are knights. But we'll talk about that a little bit in the future. In this position, Alexander Alekhine had to work out what to defend. So he's got 2 attacked. A little pawn over here, a little pawn over there. Which is the most important? Which one do you think is the most important out of those 2? This one or this one? This one, the weak spot? Absolutely. The weak spot over here is the most important pawn, and that was the one that Alekhine decided that he needed to defend. He came to here, and his opponent carried on with his attack on the weak spot. Instead of taking the pawn up here, when his queen might have got close to being trapped, we'll just have a look at that. If the queen comes up to here, gets very close to being trapped, it's just about got this square. Okay, but then we might have a knight check followed by, whoops. Oh yeah, we just move on our rook down to here, and this queen is so close to being trapped, it's really, 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 really bad. Okay, Didn't like the idea of that. He decided he was going to attack this weak spot more and more and more and more and more. So, out comes the knight to attack the weak spot. Now, in your developing last week and the week before, you'd have learned that we want to move as many pieces as possible once to get them in the game. Knight, on this square, has moved twice. It's moved twice, but I guess it's got a good reason. It's now aiming at the weak spot, and there are another 2 pieces aiming at the weak spot. So it's gone there for a good reason. It's just, maybe we should have developed more pieces first. Okay? Alexander Alekhine needs to protect this. So he made another bad move. But a move that he had to make to defend this pawn. He moved his knight to the edge of the board. A move we would never do unless we absolutely had to. And of course, he does have to do something, but the knight is aiming at the weak spot. And in this position, White saw that he could do a few takes followed by a fork. So let's have a look at the fork that happens. We have a check, and takes back again, and takes. Notice the way the king can't take yet, because it will be moving to check. But black's definitely got a queen that can take. And then, now this queen, instead of taking here, it takes somewhere else instead. So, we want to see where else it can take. And if you can find that place where it can take, then you are going to have a fork working for you. The queen's going to be aiming at 2 different targets that you can aim at. Oh, that was quick. Straight up? Absolutely. That's good typing. The queen can go straight up and take this pawn. Up it goes. And it's another fork. It's aiming at 2 different things. Actually, it looks like it's aiming at 4 different things. And now I'm going to explain to you just what it is aiming at. So you see, it's definitely aiming at the rook. It wants to take it. So that's one thing that it's aiming at. It's aiming at the knight. The knight's not protected. So that's 2 things it's aiming at. It's aiming at this pawn. That's 3 things it's aiming at that aren't protected, and it could take happily any one of those 3. Obviously, we'd want to take the rook first, the knight second, and the pawn third, because we're trying to take things in order of how good they are. This piece is not attacked. It looks like it is, and I guess it is, but it's not part of the fork, because the queen would never take that because it's protected. So it's only the 3 pieces that are coloured in red that are part of the fork. They're all targets that the queen would take. This is definitely not something the queen would take. So Alekhine had to decide what he was going to do, and he moved his king to defend his knight and his pawn. But of course it gives up his rook. I'm guessing at this point, Mr. Rodzinski was thinking he was going to come up with like a huge upset and beat this absolutely amazing player, Alexander Alekhine. However, Mr. Alekhine had it all under control, even though it looks like White's in a terrible position, Black's in a terrible position. It's White that's in problems, and that's because of the golden rules. The golden rules say that we should try and attack the centre, and they've both got their pawns in the centre. The reason we put them there is that we want to try and take control of this so our pieces can go close to the centre. If we don't have pawns in the middle, then when our pieces jump to the centre of the board, our opponent's pawns just chase them away. We then want to develop our pieces. Both sides pawns in the centre, but if we look at the development, White's got 1 piece developed, and it's in a very, very strange position. Black has got 1, 2, 3 pieces developed. So they're actually heading points on the board. If we look at the pieces that aren't developed, Black's got 2, But white, 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces that haven't moved. And what's more, he's not even going to move them. He never gets a chance from now on, because every move that black makes from now threatens something or attacks something. So, let's have a look at how Alekhine won this game. It doesn't take very long. Only another 5 moves. So, his first move, to threaten checkmate. Up comes his queen, the strongest piece, near the centre of the board. You don't really want queens like right on the edge of the board, and in the corner they can't do very much. This queen wants to get to that square there. If it can, checkmate. This most common of checkmates, the one that happens the most, this kiss of death checkmate, where the queen is right in front of the king, when the king's on the edge of the board. There's protection, so the king can't take. This is the checkmate that's going to be happening the most in your games. It happens the most in chess, generally speaking. Okay? So this is the one you've got to look out for. Well, obviously, that's something that has to be stopped. And white stopped it by blocking one of those 2 pieces. He blocked the bishop. Alekhine had the most amazing plan to do a checkmate in this position, but he needed to use all of his pieces. So first, he came up with this very, very, very strange looking move. He just thought, well, if I take you, on the next go, I'm going to go here with my queen again, and it's checkmate. There you go. Of course, the bishop's not safe. The bishop can just be taken, which is exactly what white did. And black threatened checkmate again. He needs to get his queen to this square, but he needs another piece to help out. When we're playing, we need to develop as many pieces as we can so that pieces help each other. So which piece could help the queen by attacking that square? Look at your black pieces, look at what's been developed, and try and work out which black piece could aim at that square. If you can work that one out, you would have found Alexander Alekhine's next move. Yeah, well, yes, the knight can go there. It won't be safe. You are right. The knight, if it jumps, it's attacking the square right here, and it can be taken. Well, it didn't get taken. You see, the pawn that's on this square cannot take, because if it does, the queen is going to be aiming at the bishop. So does anyone remember what I called that? The pawn that's yellow can't take, because if it takes, something bad's going to happen. The queen's going to get down to the end of the board. Yeah, yes, that's a pin. Excellent. So that's a pin. As I say, Alexander Alekhine, he knew all of these, and he was excellent at being able to put them into practice. Let's have a look what would happen if the pawn did take. The queen would come down, and what's even worse is that after he's come down here, he's now aiming at the king, which is a check. When the king moves out of the way, bang, he's going to get the rook. This is a different trick. This trick is called a skewer. Okay? And it's a little bit like a pin. It's like a pin in reverse. In a skewer, the piece that you're attacking has to move, and when that piece moves, you grab whatever's behind it. So, king moves, thank you very much, the queen gets the rook. And not only that, it's a pin in the other direction. So the knight that would like to develop can't, because if it does, the queen's going to get the other rook. One pin, one skewer, forks, all one after another. That's the way that Alekhine loved to play. Okay? As many tricks as possible. Except his opponent came up with a trick back to him. Push the pawn, attacks the queen, queen goes, thanks, free pawn. Except now, our pin pawn isn't pinned anymore because the queen won't be taking the bishop. Bang. And now Alekhine's got hardly any pieces left, although he has got his queen very, very close to his opponent's king, which has got to be a good thing. Okay, our very, very last trick, a discovered attack. A discovered attack is when we move one piece out of the way of another piece so that it can start an attack. So, if we move the bishop, for instance, we move that out of the way, then we're going to be doing what's called a discovered attack. The rook will be aiming at the queen. Okay? You would have seen an amazing discovered attack in the very first game when I think David was showing you the game that Mr. Legao played, and he moved his knight out of the way to allow his queen to be taken. That was a discovered attack of sorts. This isn't just as good a discovered attack. So Alekhine moves his bishop. Remember, he's not worried about his bishop. His rook wants to come and get the queen. But his opponent saw it and took the rook. It's like Alekhine's got no pieces left. He's only got a bishop and a queen. But that's all he needs. When you're playing your games, you really only need 2 pieces to do checkmate. You can use more. You can do checkmates with a whole load of pieces. However, you only need 2. He did checkmate this very, very next move. A really, really lovely checkmate. So I'm just going to leave that one with you for a minute to see if you can see it. Checkmate for black in one move. Yes, exactly. Over comes the bishop. The bishop comes over to here. It's check. Nothing can take the bishop. It's nicely safe. Nothing can block. And so the king would have to move. But because of the queen coming across this way, the king can go nowhere. If it goes there, the queen gets it. If it goes there, the queen gets it. If it goes there, the queen gets it. If it goes there, the bishop gets it. If it goes here, the queen gets it. It's check. You can't take, block, or move. And simply checkmate. This is the game where we see one of the best players in the history of chess, world champion, Alexander Alekhine, using all the tricks that he can use in a game. He's attacked the center. He's developed every one of his pieces. Look, he doesn't have one piece sitting on the back at this present moment in time. And although his king's not the safest of pieces, his opponent's king is completely gone. Now look, there's a great, great thing about castling. So thank you very much, Kylie. Okay, that's a great, great question. I'm just going to go back to this position. In this position, it looks like you can castle, but actually you can't. Okay, and I'm just wondering if everyone knows about this rule. When this square is attacked, you're not allowed to castle through check. It's not allowed. Okay? So as soon as the queen came here, the king just could not castle. When we're in check, you can't castle. Okay? And if you're going to land in check, you can't castle. But this is the one that most people forget. If the square next to the king is attacked, you can't castle. So that's why here, he still can't castle. Because this square's attacked. Takes. We're threatening checkmate. Now he could castle. Now he can't. We're attacked again. So, as long as this square's attacked, we can't castle. Takes. Our great discovered attack. And now our check. Well, when you're in check, you can't castle. You can't castle and get out of check. You've got to take, block, or move. And even if you could castle, when you're in check, You can't castle through check. So, this, an amazing game where Alexander Alekhine used all the tricks, all the golden rules, and won his game, and showed us exactly why he was the world champion. Even though it looked like he didn't have things under control. Okay? Even though he's 2 rooks and a knight behind his opponent, his 2 pieces have developed better, and his opponent's king stuck in the middle and checkmated without one safe square that it can go to. In your game, start looking for these tricks: pins, forks, discovered attacks, and skewers. You need to use them, and you need to stop your opponent from using them. I'm going to be reminding you about them in the weeks to come, okay? And maybe we even try and do a few puzzles with some of those tricks. Thank you very much for listening to me. Sorry, Kylie, for you not being able to hear a little bit earlier on. That's the end of the lesson for now. Once more, this is the man I'm talking about, Alexander Alekhine. Over the next few weeks, I'm going to introduce you to some other great players and some other great tricks. Thank you very much, and I'll talk to you all again next week. Bye-bye.